Capturing cityscapes at nighttime is a great way to bring the scene to life. But with so much artificial light, which is part of the reason why these images look so amazing, it can be quite difficult to process the images. And although there's no guaranteed fix that will work for every single night image, we're going to take a look at several controls that you can use in Lightroom to help you get the best from your night shots. But before we get started, one point that's worth mentioning is that the best time to shoot nightscape images in the city is during twilight, and that's simply because there's still a blue glow in the sky rather than the sky being a pure black. One of the problems with a pure black sky, apart from the fact it doesn't have any detail, so you have a large area of negative space with no visual information whatsoever, it can also pick up much of the artificial lighting, so it can make it even more difficult to process the image. But the most important element is maintaining that glow in the sky. So here I have a shot that's been processed, and if I just show you the before, this was the starting point for all the processing, and then we've just kind of lifted everything up using a handful of basic controls. So I'm just going to reset this image and we can get started with the processing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just go down to the tone curve and change the point curve from linear to medium contrast, just so that my contrast is roughly where I would want it at the start. And I'm just going to add lens corrections, which you can leave if you want to. It just depends on the image and personal preference. So next up, the shot is looking too dark, so I am going to increase the exposure until things look just about right. So I'm going to go for an amount there of +61. And then the next area that we're going to work on is the highlights, shadows, whites and blacks. We're just going to get the exposure looking right, and then we can start thinking about the white balance, which is one of the most important aspects of night photography. So let's have a look at the shadows first. So taking them over to the right, that lightens, over to the left darkens. So obviously I want to reveal as much detail as I can. But while you can take these sliders up to 100, it's not going to look too good. So let's just take this up, and I think an amount of about 70 is looking good. And you'll see there that between the exposure and the shadows, we're already bringing that image to life. And next up, we're going to go back to the highlights, and I'm just going to drag it over to the left to recover some highlight detail. So I'm going to keep taking that over, and I think somewhere in the region of 55 is looking good. There's a tiny amount of burnout on the towers here, but there's nothing I can do about that. I'm not going to worry too much. And obviously the lights here are burnt out. But if I actually just check here, I'm just turning on the highlight clipping guide, and that's showing me where the clipping's occurring. So it's just a tiny amount there, not too much to worry about. So with the highlights and the shadows set, we can now work with the whites. And I'm just going to bring the white slider over to the right. If I hold down the Alt key, that shows me where any clippings occurred. So anything that is pure white, all detail is lost. So you'll just see it's just a few spots here and there. It's nothing really too significant. So by lifting the whites, we're also brightening the image as well. And with the blacks, if I take it over to the right, that lightens, and over to the left, it darkens off the blacks. There are occasions where you may want to bring the blacks over to the right to lighten things off, but with this particular scene, it makes things look quite wishy-washy. So I'm just going to take that over to the left and go for an amount of -10. So we can just use the backslash key and just look at the before and after. So you'll see there, we've come quite a long way with just a few controls. So obviously you can use any of the controls within Lightroom to edit your shots, and we have all the presence sliders here, but I'm not going to worry about those right now because they're more about finishing touches and getting the look that you desire. What we're focusing on here is just getting the base image looking as good as possible. So next up, we are going to work on the white balance now that the exposure across the shot is roughly correct. And at the top, we have the temp. which works with the blues and yellows, and below we have tint that works with the greens and the magentas. So with the temperature, if we move that to the right, we add yellow, and that neutralizes blue in the shot. And if we move it over to the left, it adds blue, which neutralizes the yellows. So there are presets for the white balance, and there is an auto option, which usually works quite well for images where there are multiple light sources with different color temperatures. But we're going to take a look at correcting the white balance manually. So I'm just going to go back to as shot, and I'm going to use this neutral area here as my point of reference, but I'm not going to be zooming right in. I want to be able to see the whole image while I'm making these adjustments, and as I say, this will be the part of the image that I'm looking at mostly. So it's looking quite blue, so we definitely need to add some yellow. So I'm just going to take the temp slider over to the right until things are looking good. So let's just zoom in there. I would say that is very, very close to being correct. And if I just zoom out, it looks like there is a hint of magenta in here as well. So we're going to take the tint slider over to the left. So that's too far. So if I bring it back over to the right and then back to the left again, with the white balance, it's a bit of a back and forth until you find that sweet spot where all the color casts are neutralized. So looking at this area here, it looks relatively neutral. It's not always possible to completely neutralize a shot like this, so don't worry too much if you can't do that, but I think it's roughly looking about right there. So to finish off, I'm only going to work on one area with this tool, but if you do have a shot where there are multiple light sources like this one, you can use the localized adjustments to work on specific areas. So you can see these sheds here are looking a bit too warm. So I'm going to use the masking tools and the brush. So I'm just going to roughly paint over this area here, and then I can make adjustments to the white balance. So I'm just going to bring the temperature slider over to the left. So that's at -20, adding blue. And then with the tint, it's still looking a bit green in there. So I'm just going to bring the tint over. So let's go for 10 there. And if I just switch that on and off, you can see the difference that makes. So we haven't completely neutralized it, but we have improved it. And this can be applied to multiple areas of the scene if you would like to neutralize those areas. I could do that here on these buildings, but I actually quite like the warm light that's coming from those windows. This area here is a bit too strong and it would be very difficult to correct. So I'm just going to leave that as it is because it works quite well with the light trails that have come from the passing trains. So, as I say, while this isn't a definitive guide to processing every night image, we've just covered all of the main controls that you can use to get your image looking the best you possibly can.